Welcome back. You're still watching NTV Weekend Edition with me, Sandra Twinobdio. On Talk of the Nation tonight, we talk about the current political space that has seen different violent scenes, and so many people have had to question whether we should actually hold the campaigns or not. We are currently having presidential, parliamentary and local government council campaigns, but in the presidential ones we've seen violence, that has led to the death of more than 20 people, and people are continuing to question and ask, is this the right thing to be doing, with different presidential candidates, some of them getting arrested and others, of course, being injured in the process. So to speak to us on this process and so much more, we get the insights of Mr. Paul BUKENYA, who is the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission. Welcome to Talk of the Nation tonight. Thank
you, Sandra, for welcoming me.
Well, first things first, what is the Electoral Commission's view or thoughts on the current ongoing campaigns, the presidential ones, the parliamentary ones, and the local government council campaigns?
Well, first to see in the broader picture, the campaign started and they're progressing. Like you mentioned, there are campaigns going on at parliamentary level, parliamentary candidates reaching out to the electorate to solicit for their support, as well as local government councils, councillors, chairpersons of sub-counties, districts and cities. And our teams on the ground are monitoring how they are progressing and also adapting to the new unusual way of conducting the campaign using these other methods, kakuyege, billboards, posters, chizindalo, and one-on-one. One-on-one is very, very common on the ground. But of course, we're also looking at the national picture, where we have presidential candidates who are out in the field conducting their campaigns, and what we actually called this time round campaign meetings, because mass public rallies are banned. So we've seen in the past few days what can go right, and then the things that have gone wrong. And we are responding to them and continuing to engage so that we keep on track and have a campaign period where the candidates are able to, in the circumstances, reach out to the voters, but also the voters and the other party participate in the campaign safely, because the unusual thing about this is COVID, and we want stakeholders to participate in a safe manner.
Well, you're saying in the last days, a couple of days, you've seen what can go wrong and what can go right. Yeah. But we can independently say that it has gone wrong, at least these last 4 days. We've seen a lot of two presidential candidates being arrested, and also other presidential candidates being stopped from going on with their campaigns, and not even forgetting the violence that we witnessed on Tuesday right now the number is still not certain. So many people were injured, and close to 40 people, it is believed, have lost their lives. Mm-hmm. As the Electoral Commission, what do you make of that? So many people asking, should we be going ahead with the campaigns at this point in time?
Yeah, there are legitimate questions about the happenings of the previous 4 days. But as we started off, of course, we put out the whole picture. And that's why we talked about what is going right in the way that there is work that's going on, there is campaigning that's going on, following the SOPs. But also we know that at presidential level, which is the highest office, some candidates, of course, have not conducted their meetings in accordance with the guidelines that we issued, which has attracted the intervention of law enforcement, leading, of course, to the arrest of two of them, and then, of course, the others on their own suspending their campaign meetings. I think as a way of saying that, no, we need to move in this together. They made their statements independently. I don't want to put words in their mouth. Of course, the violent reaction and people coming out on the streets and all that is of great concern to us, and we issued a statement to that effect, and also took steps to engage, to engage with stakeholders, candidates themselves, security agencies, to work out better, management of the campaign period, and including situations that may get, out of hand like that. Yeah.
Well, we also, we all already know, for those watching us today, and even we know this is a very tough period for us to be holding campaigns at a time when we are all dealing with a pandemic. But we can also say that most of the presidential candidates have not been in position to follow the Electoral Commission guidelines on holding, a few people. We've seen fully blown rallies. What is the Electoral Commission doing to ensure that we get back to the drawing board and say, look, we have a COVID-19 pandemic that we're dealing with. Presidential candidates shouldn't be doing this. What is the Electoral Commission doing on that? Because we are worried, as Ugandans are worried, that the COVID-19 is going to fully blow out.
Yeah, our first action, of course, was to reach out to the candidates and say, look, we talked about this when we were starting, and this conversation goes back to July when we are starting to open up after the lockdown. And talking about, starting small and then looking at, making it, expanding and growing in numbers, schools, churches, burials, weddings, and all that coming and flowing into even the electoral and political campaigns for that matter. If you recall, the request that parties made at that time was to have meetings of 50 agents to go out and meet 50 people, and so that it's like more of a cell approach. 50 people meeting 50 and another, so that we can reduce and eliminate, the instances of many people gathering together. Of course, we since moved from that. We went to 70, we looked at 200. Our guidelines are clear that we are not conducting mass public rallies. We are conducting meetings, and meetings need to be organized in such a way that you have some control over who attends, and then the people you meet go out and take your message. And so that model, I know, is a challenge, but we've seen attempts by some candidates to follow that, and we want to push for that. But also we've seen cases where there is total flouting of the guidelines, where you even take on a procession, stop in a trading center on a highway, and then people gather, and you can't control them. Even the candidate is at risk, and we do not want to have any candidate, exposing themselves like that. So the first action by the Commission, of course, is engagement, that leaders show leadership, be the champions for this. Wear a mask, do not allow people to gather in large numbers, keep them safe. We want them healthy, alive and well, all through polling day and even beyond elections.
All right. Well, when you look at, as we conclude this conversation, when you look at the issues that have purely stood out for the last 12 days, it is violence, that is coupled with hooliganism, police brutality, and of course people praying that God saves Uganda. Then you also have, at the back of our mind, we need to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, and also third, the fact that some presidential candidates are being stopped from, going ahead with their campaigns in certain areas. There's a feeling that all of them are not treated fairly. Moving forward, the Electoral Commission, what are your plans?
First of all, we have a harmonized program, and no candidate can be denied to conduct a meeting in a place which is assigned to them, which has been set aside for that purpose. I think what we've seen candidates either moving to those venues in either processions which are intercepted, or choosing to go to places where they are not supposed to be on that particular day. So there's a program, a harmonized program agreed upon by everyone and coordinated by our teams on the ground with security, because the candidates need to be secured. You don't just want them to move without that plan. But our action, of course, is to make sure that we've seen things, we've learned. Like I said, what can go wrong, and we're not pleased at all with the images we've seen in the last days. They are affecting the credibility of the exercise, but also lives of people and businesses, and the society that has been coming up out of the lockdown to try to do the businesses again. So we have engaged immediately, and we are engaging at high level with the agencies, security agencies, the political candidates themselves, because they are the people whom the voters listen to in these matters. So I think there's action that is going to help us see better days in the campaigns that are ahead of us.
Better days in the campaigns. In just a second, for the last 43 days that we are yet to witness, should Ugandans be worried, or should we just hope for a brighter side of the campaigning period?
I think what we've seen in the last days is a cause for concern, but what we are saying is that let that concern translate into actions. What are you supposed to do to address this concern? Do not gather in big numbers. Do not, set up confrontations with because we've seen also what appears to be like deliberate actions that set up confrontation. So we're saying that these concerns should translate into actions that prevent, the violation of the guidelines and any other lawful, activities in our communities. So we think we can achieve the last days of the campaigns up to
Well, thank
February.
you so much, Paul BUKENYA. He is the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission, speaking to us about the current scenes that we've seen on the political space, especially in the last 4 days of this week. Well, we wait to see how the next 43 days will look like, but we hope that we'll have a peaceful transition into the campaigns, into the elections, so that we don't get to witness more loss of Ugandans. Thank you all for joining us on NTV Talk of the Nation. NTV Weekend Edition will continue shortly, so do not go away.